well that everything that we're saying today has been run through GEMS Corporate, past the KHDA. We had to get a lot of things okayed by the KHDA. So this is how it stands at the moment, okay? So for drop-off, there are going to be 2 thermal cameras in the primary building, okay? So anyone entering the building at all that's students and parents, staff, everybody, will need to go past one of these cameras, okay? One of the cameras will be in the main reception area, and that's where everybody, all the children that do not take the bus is going to need to go through. And then there's going to be one at the back of the building, and that will just be for the bus children when they get off the bus, okay? We are not letting anybody in the academy with a temperature of 37.5 or above. We do understand that it may just be a case that someone has been hot because they've walked around the corner or from the car. So there will be a cooling off time, a cooling off period, and we will retake their temperature, okay? To ease drop off and people traffic as well, we've staggered the start time. So FS start at a slightly different time, and we've made that time bigger where students can come in. So for year 3, we'll come to this a little bit later, but it will be 7:25 to 7:45. So it'll be like 2 10-minute windows, and the teacher will kind of allocate you a window to try and come in during that time, just to make it really easy and decrease the number of people that we have in the corridors and moving around the academy. There's going to be a one-way system around our academy as well to avoid people passing each other in the corridors. There are going to be 2-meter markers along the corridors as well, just to kind of help as a reminder and as a guide for our WSO community. Masks are going to be mandatory for anyone 6 years old and above. Okay, so that includes everybody in year 3. So all students are going to be required to wear masks. There is only one exception for that, and that is during PE, but we'll come to that a little bit later. FS1 to year 2 students, so this isn't us, but it's worth you noting that they are allowed to be dropped into the academy by 1 adult, okay? So 1 adult is allowed to take them in. However, in year 3, we are requesting that because they are slightly older, they come into the classroom independently. So parents are going to be dropping them off at the gates, okay, or at the doors near reception. Okay, so, and then the children will make their own way to their class. There are going to be so many members of staff around guiding the children to the classrooms, especially in that first week, so they get to know where their class is and things like that. Okay, so please do not worry, your children will be safe. We won't lose any of them, I promise. Okay. Sanitizing stations, we have hundreds of them all over the academy. They are on all corridors, and they're within or just outside every single classroom as well, so easily accessible. So that's worth noting as well. Okay. So how do we keep our students safe? This continued. So in class, once the students are in class, they are divided into smaller groups to support social distancing. So we're calling them bubbles. Okay, and in year 3, again, we'll come to this a little bit later again, but in year 3, they're going to be in bubbles of either 13 or 14, okay, or no more than that, maybe slightly less. Students will be required to keep a distance of 1.5 meters between themselves and others. They will be reminded regularly and supported, of course, with washing, sanitizing their hands. And for years 1 to 6, so including year 3, students will use the toilets that are in the corridor. However, each toilet will be cleaned after every single use, particularly things like the touch points, like the handle, the flush, and things like that will be cleaned after every single use. So we are going to have members of staff based at each toilet, okay? Okay, so teachers and students, so 6 and above, will have to wear masks at all times. Or unless when they're doing strenuous exercise. So that would be during PE lessons if they are doing strenuous exercise during that PE lesson. All classrooms will have a deep clean and sterilized every day, and any toys and resources will be cleaned after every single use as well, so they will not be reused until they are cleaned, okay? Students will have their own pack of resources as well. So in year 3, what we're thinking, they will have either a tray in one place in the classroom or potentially on their own desk, and just all of their things are in that tray. So they are the only person that uses that pencil, they are the only person that uses that rubber, that sharpener, things like that. Okay, so they will not be sharing resources with other students to minimize touching the same things. And it's worth noting as well, any materials or textiles like cushions or sand trays and even the carpets from our classrooms have all been removed because they cannot be safely, completely sanitized every single day. Okay, so lots of things have been removed, and it's mainly just things now that can be sanitized and wiped down very easily. So again, in class, students will have their lunch in their own classroom at their designated table. Okay, so everyone will have their own table. The tables will be socially distanced of 1.5 meters, and all the children will have lunch in class. Okay, so they'll stay within their classroom. They will only move. The only time your child will move when they're back in the academy is when they go to PE. Okay, every other specialist lesson, and again, we'll come to this a little bit later, every other specialist lesson, they will be catered for in other ways. So either online or the specialist will come to the class, things like that. Okay, so they will not be moving around the academy very often at all. Once the weather is cooler, we will have outside break times, but again, that will be done within their bubble. So the children will not be going out to play like they did previously with many children. It will be done in their bubble. Okay. Okay, so pick up. We spoke about drop off, we spoke about in class. So pick up, there's going to be some allocated zones around the academy for each class. Okay, so then the class teacher or the teaching assistant will walk your children down to their zone at the end of the day and wait until the students are collected. Okay, those zones are going to most likely be, or they will be outside, dotted around the academy. So they will be within the academy, so within the school gates, but they will. Sorry, there's someone phoned me, interrupted me. Those zones will be within the academy gates. Okay, so you will be told where your zone is. You will go there. Your child will come to you. Okay, that saves parents going into the academy again, having to be temperature checked again, and it minimizes people within the building. Okay. Okay, staying home if unwell. There's going to be a very strict policy for this. We're asking that parents do check their child's temperature regularly before bringing them to school. And a student showing any symptoms whilst they're in school will need to be taken directly to the clinic. And I will again come back to that in a little bit more detail. Okay. If your child gets the bus, if you're planning for them to get the bus, it's just a little bit of information there. So STS are going to be operating, but they're going to be operating at half capacity. They're going to have seating markers in place. There's going to be safe hygiene practices on the bus. All children will have to be temperature checked before they get on the bus, and they will not be allowed on the bus if a child's temperature is higher than 37.5 degrees. Okay. All seat belts, armrests, handles, rails, everything's going to be sanitized before your children get on the bus. So the buses will be safe and sterilized and properly cleaned and socially distanced if you are planning for your child to get the bus to school. Okay. So year 3 specific information then. So due to the limitations of the bubble, of course, it's very difficult. We'd love to have all children in 100% of the time, but we don't have the capacity in the room to have everybody in socially distanced. So I think, of course, I hope you agree, it makes sense to have our FS1 to year 2 children in the younger children who need maybe more support with remote learning. They are going to be in 100% of the time. And the older children, so key stage 2, so 3 and above, are going to be doing 50%. Remote learning and 50% in school. Okay. So they're going to have, it will be over a 2-week block. So timetables will be over a 2-week block. Okay. And your child will come to school on alternate days. So one day in school, one day remote learning, one day in school, and so on. Okay. The schedule is there in bold. You can see week 1, week 2. And then underneath it tells you what groups they are. So week 1, on Sunday, it's A, on Monday, B, Tuesday, A, and so on. Okay, and you can see underneath that group A will be Emerald and Diamond. So if your child is in Emerald or Diamond, for whenever it's week 1, you would look and you would see, okay, they're in Sunday, they're in Tuesday, and they're in Thursday. Okay, and then week 2, it would be the other way around. They would have 2 days in school. They would come in on Monday and Wednesday. Okay. As I said earlier, classes will be capped at 27 students with each class will have their own teacher and teaching assistant. For the days that students are on site, so in school, their class will be split into these bubbles, the learning groups. So that will be, as we cap at 27, that will be either a 13 or a 14. If the class is full, it might be the case that not all classes are full, so they might have slightly less than that, okay? This group of 14 will have their own classroom, okay? And then the other half of the class will be in the classroom either next door or opposite. So they'll be close, but they are going to be in separate rooms to make sure that we're keeping safe and keeping these bubbles, okay? And then what the teacher and the teaching assistant are going to do is they're going to alternate between the groups, okay? So how this is going to work, the teachers will, of course, find their own teaching style and what works best for them, but the teacher will be responsible for planning the lessons, delivering the lessons and things like this, okay? So it might be a case of asynchronous and synchronous as well whilst they're in school. So the children might start a task remote, like online, while the teacher's in one class, and then the TA can support, and then they can switch, things like that. So the teaching assistant will not be responsible for a class, okay? They're there to just support the learning. It's also worth noting that the location of the year groups around the academy have changed as well. So year 3 will actually now be on the 2nd floor as well. So slightly more stairs for the children to do in the morning, but I'm sure that's good exercise after lockdown. So, but there will be, like I said, there'll be plenty of staff to support students getting to class every morning. So please don't worry, your children will be safe to leave at the door, okay? Here's just an example of what it will look like. So there's 2 classrooms next door to each other, teacher in one, TA in the other, and they will rotate. The children will stay in their bubble, okay? Like I said, the teacher will be responsible for planning, delivering the lessons. All students will be 1.5 meters away from each other, and specialist teachers will come to class to deliver lessons, and they will also be keeping 1.5 meter distance, okay? So I said that I would talk a little bit about curriculum provision as well. So a priority for the first few weeks back or until we feel comfortable is the well-being of our students. They've had a long time away from the academy. We're going to be trying our best to focus on the personal, social, emotional skills, things like that. We have a great pastoral team, people like our counsellors, our heads of house. We have a number of people that can support our students, but that is going to be, of course, a really big priority, just making sure that that transition back into the academy is as smooth and as easy for the students as possible, because not only have they not been in school for a while, but they are going to have a different teacher. The classes have been mixed, so there's lots of change for them, and we recognize that, and we will be supporting the students as much as we physically can, okay? Students will have access to the full year 3 curriculum, okay, including specialist lessons, but they will just not have access to those specific areas. So although they will still during the year have outdoor learning, for example, they will not be going to the outdoor learning area at the moment, okay? Hopefully as the year goes on, everything will start to get back to normal. But at the moment, the only time, like I said earlier, where they will move is PE. They will go to the sports hall or the PE area, okay? But they will have access to the full curriculum. The class teacher, again, will be using Classroom Monitor to assess your child and determine their next steps for learning. It's the same as every year. Classroom Monitor has been used very successfully. Okay, so assessment will continue to be the same. Okay, so timings and siblings. School timings for year 3, you can see there. So drop off is between 7:25 and 7:45. Once you find out your teacher will be in contact, and they will give you each family a specific time that ideally the children will be dropped off maybe in a 10-minute window. Okay, we do understand, of course, this isn't always possible with traffic or things like that. Okay, but you will be given a 10-minute window if possible to try and come in, just to try and make it half and half, so we have less traffic on the corridors. Pickup is at 2:50. The end of the day is 2:50 for year 3 and year 4. If your child has an older sibling, then we do have sibling club available, so they can stay in class in their bubble with their teacher or the teaching assistant until 3:30. We can provide that for you as well to make that easier for you. It's really worth noting as well, every year previously we've finished at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. It's been a nice early day for the children and the staff. That will not be happening, okay, for now, for at least term 1. Thursday will be the same time, so it will be until 2:50, okay? Because we simply cannot have the whole academy finishing at 2 o'clock because there'll be too many people in the building, okay? If you have siblings at the school, all teachers will be ready to welcome the students from 7:20 a.m. So if you need to, well, if a sibling needs to come in early, if maybe an older sibling is dropping them off or something like that, they can go into class slightly earlier. We are not going to be having any children in the morning waiting on the corridor. So as soon as you're in the academy, they go straight to the class, and that's it. They're in there with the teacher in their bubble, okay? They won't be waiting on the corridors like in previous years. Okay, if your children are in different houses, okay, that might present a bit of an issue, particularly if they're in school on different days. So if you have children and one's in Ruby and one in Onyx, that's fine because they're both in on the same days. But if you have one in Ruby and one in Emerald, if you would like one of them to move, just drop me an email, okay? Because otherwise that means you'll be having to drop off and pick up every single day. It's whatever works for you as a family, and we'll do our very best to help you and support you, okay? Okay, so moving on to COVID then and our procedures. So we'll start with if a child displays or anyone displays symptoms in class. Okay, so the teacher is responsible to refer students with COVID-19 symptoms, and there's a list there of the symptoms. So coughs, body aches, fatigues, shortness of breath, sore throat, runny nose, diarrhea, nausea, and headache. These are the official symptoms that we have been given. Okay, so anything like that, the teacher is responsible to send the child to the nurse for screening, and an extra adult will be called to help support that. Okay. There'll be a first aid trained teacher for each house as well, with a first aid kit for minor injuries. We want to reduce the amount of children that are visiting the clinic. The clinic is going to be predominantly for any COVID related incidents. However, of course, if there is a more serious incident, someone really hurts their leg or something like this, of course our doctors will still be available. Okay, but for anything minor, we have many first aid trained staff in our academy, teachers, TAs, a number of staff, a number of the leadership team. So they will be helping support with any first aid as well. If a child or teacher or any member of staff begins to show symptoms of COVID-19 whilst they're in school, they must get isolated instantly. The parent or guardian will be notified immediately, and the parent should then take them to the hospital and take the necessary action. Okay. So we do have designated isolation rooms within the academy. So if that does happen, we will just calmly move your child to an isolation room, and they will wait there until you come and pick them up. Okay. As per guidelines, the children will have to be picked up by their parent as soon as possible. However, if our medical team do consider your child's health to be unstable, so we are seriously concerned that it is a case of COVID, you will have to pick your child up very soon. If you can't do that, we will have to phone an ambulance to come and collect your child instead. Okay, but you will be given plenty of notice, and we will again support you with collecting your children and things like that. Okay. Whilst we're on that as well, it's worth noting that please make sure that on the parent portal your contact details are up to date, because if we do need to phone you, because your child has 1, 2, 3 of these symptoms of COVID, if we can't get hold of you, we will have to phone an ambulance as well. So it's much easier if you just make sure that your phone numbers are up to date, and we'll be able to get in contact with you. Okay. So if a child has to be sent home, the child should not return to the school until a negative test result is obtained. So if the result is negative and there is a probable case, so that means if your child is still showing symptoms, they are required to go into a 14-day quarantine. For us in Key Stage 2, that's actually quite easy to do because your child will be used to remote learning. They're doing remote learning every other day. During that 14-day quarantine, it will just turn into every day. Okay. If they have a negative test result and there's no kind of probable case, then they can resume schooling, so they can come back on site, but as long as they are symptom free. Please don't send them back if they still have their symptoms. Okay. If there is a positive test result, the traced contacts of the patient, including teachers, colleagues, or other people that have been in close contact, they will commence a 14-day quarantine as well. Okay, so that includes, even if it's not in their bubble, it will be the whole class. Okay, so if your child's in 3A but they are in bubble 1, both bubbles, bubble 1 and bubble 2, will both have to be quarantined for 14 days, and they will go to remote learning for 14 days, just to be on the safe side. Okay, and then any teachers as well, myself, so any leadership who's been in direct contact, so anyone that's been in direct contact with that student will then have to take a test, have the 14-day quarantine. Okay, just to see if they start developing any symptoms. Okay. Okay. My child's class, so if they're having to quarantine for 14 days, how will they access the learning? I've already mentioned, really easy for Key Stage 2. We're going to use the same platform, so we'll just go to 100% remote learning just for those 14 days. Okay. Everyone is already set up with Seesaw. Everyone's very familiar with Zoom and things like that. So that will be very, well, hopefully, in theory, it should be nice and easy to change if we need to. If your child has to quarantine for 14 days, but their classmates don't need to, okay, that might happen if your child has a negative test, but they still have some of the symptoms, or if they have been in contact. So this might be outside of school. If they've been in contact with someone who you know has had a confirmed case, you will be required to let us know, and your child will then need to do the 14 days just to keep the rest of their bubble and the rest of their class safe. Okay, all staff, is worth noting as well, all staff are being trained on this, and we have a designated health and safety staff members to handle any emergency situations. So any cases like this, there are plenty of staff who have been, all of which have been trained, and plenty of staff that will be available, like myself, in year 3, in year 4, I will be available to come to any emergency situations or any concerning kind of health issues or anything like that. Okay, plenty of staff to support. More information on this, I'm sure, I can't see the chat right now, but I'm sure Miss Henretti is busy answering lots of your questions. But more information on this and these protocols and procedures will be shared in the parent handbook as well. Okay, so all of this information will be coming to you. Okay, so 100% remote learning options. So a number of people in year 3 have opted to at least begin the year with 100% remote learning. A lot of people have said maybe just for term 1, just to see how it goes. That's fine. The majority, it's worth noting, the majority, about 80%, are returning to school. At the moment in year 3, we're sat at about 20% would like to just start the year with remote learning, which is an independent kind of family decision. That's absolutely fine. So here is the model for what that will look like if that's you. So here's a scenario for you. So let's say Ibrahim is in 4A and has opted for 100% remote learning. His timetable will be as follows. So he will join 4A remote learning because that's his class. And then the next day, when his class are actually in the academy face-to-face, he will actually join, all the classes are going to be paired up. So he will join 4F for their remote learning. Okay, so really the 100% remote learning, they're kind of going to have 2 classes, or they're going to have two teachers, or they're going to be joining 2 classes for their remote learning. Okay, however, they will keep their own house. Their official class is going to be their class. So for Ibrahim, it will be 4A. He will just join 4F for remote learning every other day. Okay. His 4A class teacher will be responsible for assessment, reporting, feedback, everything like this. His 4A teacher will, of course, work with the teacher from 4F. They will be in constant communication about Ibrahim's progress and the work he's producing and things like that as well. And then whenever you as a family decide that, okay, if I feel more comfortable now, Ibrahim, I would like him to return to school. That is fine, and he can return to school in line with the parent contract that will need to be signed prior to beginning remote learning. Okay, so if that's you and you want your child to do remote learning, you will have a very brief parent contract just to read through and sign. And there is kind of a notice period, but it's very short. It's I think it's a week. It's 5 days as it stands at the moment. But you will be able to read through that in your own time when it gets sent to you, and I will do that. I will send those things to you in the very near future. Okay. Okay, so we're nearly done. We're on to frequently asked questions now. So if your child receives SEND support, so if they have a learning support assistant, an adult that works with them one-to-one, if they need that additional support, Miss Macaulay will have been in touch with further information. So hopefully you would have received that from her already. But if they do receive level support in class, this will be discussed with your inclusion teacher at the beginning of the year. Okay, and that support will be adapted slightly. If you want your child to have 100% remote learning, if you've requested this and you filled in the form that Mr. Sadler put out in his original letter, then I will be in contact with you regarding kind of how that will work in more detail and things like that. If you would like to talk through options, if you didn't have a chance to sign up to that, if you missed that, then that's fine. Drop me an email. My email address is at the end of this PowerPoint. Okay, so just drop me an email and that's fine. I can add you onto the list. That's no problem. Okay. If you need to change your child's house as their sibling is in a different house, again, please contact me. I did mention that earlier, but if you would like to make sure that they're in the same house, that's not a problem. I can do that for you. Just drop me an email as well. If you have a child that's under 6, this won't be relevant to any of you unless of course you have multiple children. But if you do have a child that's under 6 come into our academy and you want them to wear a mask, of course, that is a personal preference. That is fine. What if there's another national spike in COVID-19 numbers? Is the school prepared? The simple answer is yes. We've already done a whole term remote learning. So if we do need to quarantine, if the UAE goes into lockdown again and schools have to close, then I believe that we are fully prepared and the learning can continue as normal. Will students keep a 1.5 meter distance? There is no doubt, of course, this is going to be a bit of a challenge. It's new. We are going to support our students by talking to them, teaching them modeling. We're setting out our classrooms to support this, so the desks are all this far apart and things like that. And they won't be moving around the academy as much. There's a number of things that we're doing to support the students to help them adapt to this, and they will adapt very quickly. If there's one thing that we've learned through this whole thing is that our children are very, very resilient, and our teachers, may I add, as well. Okay, and I think that might even be the final question is, will there be big group events in school? Unfortunately, of course, there can't be. Things like our big house assemblies, theatre productions, things like this. This is, of course, really sad, and it's something that I think WSO in particular actually does really, really well. And we have so many events on our calendar that are amazing, and they won't be able to go ahead as normal for now while this is going on. However, we just need to, I think, look on the bright side and just look forward and start getting excited for when those events can happen again, which will hopefully not be too long. Okay, so that I'm pretty much done with most of the information there. I hope that I have reassured you that that we do have the children's health and well-being at the forefront of our minds. We wouldn't be opening if we weren't confident that we can look after your children and their health and well-being. As mentioned, you will be receiving regular communication from us over the next few weeks. There's a number of things that are going to be sent to you. Please do feel free to reach out if there's a question that you either haven't got a chance to ask today. If there's a question specific to your child as well, please just drop me an email. That's fine. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Follow us on social media. You'll get regular updates, and you'll be hearing from me very soon. Apart from that, I think I just need to say, kind of stay safe. I hope you've had an amazing summer. Enjoy what's left. And we really can't wait to have your children back. It's like I said at the beginning, it's been very, very strange being in school without the children. So I look forward to seeing their faces again. Okay. So thank you all very much. Thank you all very much for for your time and for attending the session today. I hope that was beneficial, and you will hear from me very soon. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.